So you speak to me, sadness, coming out the winter. Will you ask? I need a sound. I need a sound check, please. Thorpe, can you hear my guitar?
For guitar.
It isn't?
Bonnie can turn it on. She does that. You can be on it.
That's the problem. Okay.
Check, check. Good morning. Good morning. I think we're ready. Good morning to those of you here in our sanctuary and to those of you viewing us online. I'm Kerr, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. We're a progressive community in which people are free to be without fear. We practice joyful acceptance here and seek to do work to create a more just community and world. Now, if you'd like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers. Their contact information can be found at uvflint.org. Just fill out the information card and you'll find the receipt. And our announcements are on the back of the service, order service. Hope you take a minute to read them. And I'd like to quickly highlight this one. We'll have a Thanksgiving Day feast here at the church. 3:30 Thanksgiving. We'll provide the main courses, but if you can, please bring a side dish or dessert, anything good to eat. Also, please let us know you are coming. If you're bringing something to eat, by using there would be a sign-up sheet on the foyer or downstairs in the next hall. I also want to say thank you to everybody. Our recent concert with Emma's Revolution brought us together in song and spirit. What a feeling! It was powerful stuff. And we did it not only for ourselves, but for those halfway around the world. For the trans and LGBTQ community in Uganda, who struggle for personal freedom, and for the very survival.
Not much sound.
Stand by.
Can you hear me now?
I think the other one. All years. I suggest we start over. Yeah.
Take two.
Take two.
Good. I was a little rough. Testing, testing. Is that better? Thank you. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. To those of you in the sanctuary and to those of you viewing us online, what a morning it is. I'm Terry Cross. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. We are a progressive community in which people are free to be themselves without fear. We practice joyful acceptance here and seek to do work to create a more just community and world. And now, if you'd like more information about Unitarian Universalism or our congregation, please feel free to talk with one of our ministers. Their contact information can be found at uvflint.org. If you're a visitor today, would like to receive our weekly email, your newsletter, just fill out the information card that you will find in the seat backs. Now, our announcements are on the back of your order of service. Hope you'll take a minute to read them. I'm going to highlight one of them. We will have Thanksgiving Day feast. We come together here in this place 3:30 Thanksgiving Day will provide the main courses, but if you can, please bring a side dish, dessert, anything good to eat, and please do let us know you're coming and what you're bringing by a sign-up sheet in the foyer or downstairs in Nelson Hall after the service. Now, I also want to give you a little shout out about our recent concert with Emma's Revolution. It was wonderful. It was so good to see Pat and Sandy O again. And they brought us together in song and spirit. What a feeling. Powerful stuff. We did it not only for ourselves, but for those halfway around the world, for the trans and LGBTQ community in Uganda who struggle for personal freedom and for their very survival. Our friend Jay has already been beat up and left for dead one time. It's a dangerous place and world for them. And thank you to Reverend Lynn for initiating contact with Pat and Sandy, and to all the volunteers that picked up and ran with whatever needed to be done, for the donors of goods for the cafe. So all monies received went to the cause, for all the good people who came out on Sunday evening to enjoy an experience that I would call radical love. I enjoyed myself immensely. We're up. And money raised is still being finalized, but we raised over $1,000. And this, one of the things purchased, they had been removed from the land where they had shelter, and they were able to find new land, and our payment plus other monies went to make that purchase. This is a picture of the new office staff. There's also land for tents and spaces for them to gather and be safe. And that's a pretty amazing thing to happen. And I'm just so thankful to everybody here and everybody who came. It was really a nice night, and for it to result in something like this is something special, that you can make a difference. You know, we're not a huge people, it's not a huge place, but we can come together and do good in the world. And since it was so good, it only encouraged us, we're going to do it again. Mustard's Retreat called and asked about us if we would have them in our concert space. And so that's being arranged with help from a committee, and it's going to be celebrating their 50th anniversary, and that will be tentatively February 3rd.
What is that on the screen? I have no idea.
This is the office space in Uganda, is what this is. At their new facility, that the monies that had been sent prior and our money will be added towards, went to purchasing land, rent.
It's effectively a hideout. It's in a neighborhood where the police probably don't know there's anything to do with an LGBT safe house or clinic. And so this is the alternative to a campsite that they were kicked out of anyhow, which was also a hiding place.
You're not on.
Oh, it's okay.
Yes.
So really quick, so they were evicted from the place that they were. Okay, so the Femme Alliance, the organization that we were raising money for with the concert, they were evicted on October 31st because the landlord could have a penalty of 10 years in prison for renting to an LGBTQ organization. So we sent them money in advance because they had to be out October 31st, but they were able to find a space a little bit outside the capital city on a safe road where people could actually probably get there without getting beaten up. And this is an office space and a piece of land where they can put up 2 big tents, and 20 people can sleep in the tents, so they'll have shelter. This facility, they can have meetings, they can have mental health meetings, they can do exercise classes, they can get medical attention where it's needed. They can also, pick up condoms and get HIV meds and things like that they need when they go to this particular place. And the best part about it is it's owned by an absentee landlord who lives in South Africa. So that person is not concerned about being arrested in Uganda for renting to an LGBTQ organization. So they should be safe there for at least a while.
Thank you.
That's the rest of the story.
I had no idea what I was looking at.
Sorry about that. Now you know. And now, please join us in our chalice lighting. May this flame remind us of the value of opening our minds to the ideas and perspectives of those unlike ourselves. May it symbolize the bright light and the stories they bring to our lives. And now, our covenant, join me. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
We have no pianist this morning, but that's not going to be a problem. We're going to do some a cappella. Some of our hymns we'll sing without a pianist to accompany us. And Bonnie's going to do some music for us, so we'll do fine. The service is more or less about the monks and the nuns of the Middle Ages. So as you're sitting and singing without a piano to sing to, you can pretend you're a monk or a nun or something like that. And our prelude this morning, our slides, will be in silence. So if you'd like to sit in silence, and we'll look at pictures of the medieval monasteries and nunneries. You can go ahead and roll that, Thorpe. Thanks.
For 5,000 years or thereabouts, more than 15,000 generations of human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos. And they spoke aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of air and earth, fire and water. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of those heroes. They called them gods. We also gather this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best as we are able. We invoke the power and wonder of life itself. We remind ourselves that we are stardust and are capable of miracles, first among them, that we can love. For 5,000 years or more, humans have done something like this. And so we continue that ancient tradition, and in our way, and in our own time.
Let's stand as we sing together.
Creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia. Bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Swift rushing wind so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven long. Alleluia, alleluia, bright burning sun in praise rejoice. High stars of evening find your voice. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Cool flowing water, pure and clear, make music for all life to hear. Alleluia, alleluia. Bright burning fires, so strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Thank you so much. Please be seated.
In that particular song, the words were, are attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. So after our spoken meditation and silent meditation today, again, we will have silent lighting of candles of joys and concerns up front or in the back. And as always, you may write in the book at the rear of the sanctuary for the electronic newsletter. So today, let us meditate on the 800-year-old words of Giovanni di Pietro di Bernardone, also known as St. Francis of Assisi. Be praised, my Lord, through all your creatures, especially through my Lord brother sun, who brings the day, and you give light through him. And he is beautiful and radiant in all his splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. Be praised, my Lord, through sister moon and the stars in the heavens. You have made them precious and beautiful. Be praised, my Lord, through brothers wind and air, and clouds and storms and all the weather, through which you give your creatures sustenance. Be praised, my Lord, through sister water. She is very useful and humble and precious and pure. Be praised, my Lord, through brother fire, through whom you brighten the night. He is beautiful and cheerful and powerful and strong. Be praised, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who feeds us and rules us and produces various fruits with colored flowers and herbs. Be praised, my Lord, through those who forgive out of love of you, through those who endure sickness and trial. And happy are those who endure in peace, for by you, Most High, they will be crowned. Let us enter into the silence.
Our reading this morning is from a book by the celebrated author John Sweeney. Sweeney specializes in introducing the real St. Francis to non-religious people. Friars are monks who live out in the world along with everyone else. But before Francis invented the friar, monks were shut up in cloisters, apart from the world. Those cloisters were tightly controlled in the sense that someone living inside of one rarely went outdoors. All the action of life, including and especially what was considered religious life, took place inside. Monks prayed in rooms made of stone and wood. They sometimes worked each day for short periods of time outdoors, but most important aspects of life took places in rooms of gray and brown. Imagine the colors they were missing with such a life. Wheat fields with oranges and reds. The chromatic display of flowers. Francis saw something much larger. He was, to use the words of an earlier mystic, Meister Eckhart, one who did not see things separated from each other. He instead moved beyond and saw how things were all connected. He saw the all in all. For this reason, Francis went about blessing every form of creation, even those that might seem to us inanimate, even the stones. Not only did he preach to birds, but it is even said that he talked with trees. We are told that one day he called to an almond tree. "Brother Almond, tell me about God." And the almond tree opened its blossoms. Now, regardless of how long it actually took for the blossoms to open, can anyone say he was not well answered? Francis insisted that the gardens planted by his friars should always include a strip at one end for what others in his time saw as useless flowers.
Please don't be afraid to sing along if you know the song and would like to sing. So you speak to me of sadness and the coming of the winter, fear that is within you now that seems to never end, and the dreams that have escaped you, hope that you've forgotten. Tell me that you need me now, you want to be my friend, and you wonder where we're going. Where's the rhyme? Where's the reason? And it's you For the children and the flowers are our sisters and our brothers. Their laughter and their loveliness clear the cloudy day. And the song that I am singing, singing is a prayer to non-believers. Come and stand beside us. You can help us find the way.
Thanks so much for that, Bonnie. Today it is my pleasure to tell you about a very amazing person, Giovanni di Pietro di Narbardone, aka St. Francis of Assisi. The Catholic Church recognizes about 11,000 saints, but most of us know very few of them. We should try something to see if we know at least some of the saints. Please don't be shy. Shout out the name of a saint that you know at least a little about. Go. St. Christopher. Others. Joseph? A big one. St. Francis of Assisi. Yeah. The best known. St. Joan of Arc. You're doing better than I thought. Very good. I know one, St. Patrick, who drove the snakes out of Ireland and drank green beer. The big one, St. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Pretty good, really. I mean, for a bunch of Unitarians. Of course, and there's St. Paul, but he wasn't very cuddly, so we just called him Paul. But most Protestants have been taught that revering a saint is a kind of idolatry, and the focus should stay on Jesus. Of course, that doesn't stop millions of Protestants from having a statue of St. Francis in their garden, does it? UUs, who might be called super Protestants, naturally know very little about the saints, let alone revere very many of them, except the birdbath saint, St. Francis. And I believe we have a picture of St. Francis coming. So how can it be that out of 11,000 saints, only one of them got not one, but 2 songs in our UU hymnals? If we saint-denying super Protestants will have Francesco's of Assisi's, if we have his God talk in our hymnal, he is obviously a very different kind of saint. He was born in Italy in 1181, and his mother called him Giovanni in honor of John the Baptist because she wanted him to become a priest. His father, a big businessman, hated that idea, and so he called him Francesco, which means from France, because the boy's mother was from France. Francesco's friends, however, called him King of Revels, which in today's language means party animal. He left school when he was 14 and became a vain, rebellious teenager who drank too much and broke the city curfew. His family was rich, so he had horses to ride, and he learned archery and wrestling. He soon decided he did not want to be a cloth merchant like his father. He wanted to be a knight in armor, an action hero in today's lingo. Well, this party animal action hero soon got his chance when he went to fight in a local war. The whole battlefield was soon covered with bodies of butchered, mutilated men screaming in agony. Francesco was captured, and his fine armor made it clear to his enemies that he could bring a big ransom price for them. He spent nearly a year in a dank, underground prison before his father got him out by paying a big ransom. Scholars believe Francesco went home with what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. Some things never change, it seems. A taste of war usually proves to most of us that there is no romance in battle, that seeking vengeance is futile, and that war can never change things for the better. It took a taste of war to teach Francesco that he was on the wrong track. He was sick in body and mind, and then one day, he passed what he feared and hated most in life, a person with the disease of leprosy. It was thought in that day that people with leprosy deserved their disease because of some sin they had committed. Francesco usually ran the other way when he saw someone with leprosy because they were so miserable and often disfigured. But this time, he went right up to him, embraced him, gave him a kiss and some money. Francesco said he realized the leper was Jesus, and his whole life changed in that moment. Was it a miracle? Or perhaps just the everyday miracle that happens when any of us stop being ruled by fear and hatred? And that is no small miracle. Whatever happened that day changed history as much or more than do most battles. Francesco was now well on his way to becoming another kind of action hero. And heroes are important. And today, they are in short supply. Professor Scott LaBarge at Santa Clara University studies the need for heroes, and he is very worried that young people either don't have heroes or have really odd heroes. He learned that a couple of years ago, the administrators of the Barron Prize for Young Heroes polled American teenagers and found that only half could name a personal hero. Superman and Spider-Man were named twice as often as Gandhi, Martin Luther King, or Abraham Lincoln. Professor LaBarge writes that it is clear that our media makes it all too easy for us to confuse celebrity with excellence. Of the students who gave an answer, more than half named an athlete, a movie star, or a musician as their hero. 1 in 10 named winners of American Idol as heroes. He goes on to say that gangsta rap is a disaster for heroism and notes that director Spike Lee laments the fact that while his generation grew up idolizing great civil rights leaders, today young people in his community aspire to become pimps or strippers. Surely, he goes on to say, no one wants their children to get their role models from any hyper-materialistic, misogynistic culture, black or white. But our communities are finding it difficult to make alternative role models take hold. End quote. And regrettably, the heroes whose powerful examples could help quell the violence and end the poverty that plagues our planet Earth, those heroes are religious heroes of the past and present. That's a problem. We live in a world where religion is seen by millions of people as uncool, passé, a big waste of time, and something you might identify with just to get elected. Much of that is largely understandable. Judaism's religious texts overwhelmingly endorse compassion and peace, and the Hebrew Bible contains the well-known commandment to love your neighbor as thyself. But I haven't heard anyone in Israel calling for an end to the bombing of civilians because it is against their religion. Of course, the same is true of Islam's holy writings that primarily extol peace and favor managing conflict through peaceful settlement. The Christian religion also has a long menu you can choose from if you're hungry to solve a big problem. Justifications for killing all of the Canaanites are at the top of the menu, and the radical admonition to love your enemy is at the very bottom of the menu. Right now, no one is calling the world's attention to those "thou shalt not kill" selections at the bottom. It's not surprising, really. Imperfect humans naturally strive to make the world better by thinking in terms of God, and they produce very imperfect religions that can do more harm than good. But Francesco of Assisi was different. In the year 1200, he was in his 20s, and he routinely cared for people living with leprosy. He believed that God had chosen him to save the church, and in a cruel age where people were hungry for salvation of any kind, the church was the only refuge for the poor and sick. To raise money to rebuild a local church, Francesco sold a bolt of cloth from his father's shop along with his horse. His father dragged him before the local bishop, who told Francesco to return his father's money. Francesco stripped off his clothes and, standing there naked, gave the money back to his father, declaring that God was now the only father he would recognize. The bishop quickly covered Francesco with a cheap, rough brown tunic. You might say St. Francis, the wandering monk, was born that day. The simple, unadorned robe Francis wore as he left the bishop's estate would become the symbol of the Franciscan order. He soon embraced the poverty of the wandering Jesus of Nazareth, which was a radical thing to do in his day. The Christian church was tremendously wealthy, rich beyond what many other people could believe in that day and age. That concerned Francis and many others who felt that the long-held Christian ideal of helping the poor and the outcasts was fading. And the number of poor, the sick, and the outcasts had grown with the changing conditions of the new urban society. Francis and his small band of followers had plenty to do. Francis was soon preaching in up to 5 villages per day, teaching a new kind of emotional and personal Christian religion that everyday people could understand. His idea was simple: imitate Jesus, period. Historians note that he preferred larks to ledgers. He did not write theology, and even went so far as to preach to animals, which earned him the nickname God's Fool. But Francis's message was spread far and wide, and thousands of people were captivated by what they heard. His followers were not called monks. Monks lived secure in their monasteries, safe from the supposedly unholy masses. Francis's followers were friars, which just means brothers, and they lived among the people as teachers and providers of charity. They owned nothing but the clothes on their own backs. His female followers were organized by Clare of Assisi, now known as St. Clare. She was one of Francis's first friends, and the Poor Clares, as the order came to be known, still number about 20,000 and are scattered throughout 75 countries. Yes, we live in an age when people everywhere are throwing out religion and anything or anyone associated with it. In large part, that is understandable. But as you might guess, I have a vested interest in preserving religion. And so I ask, what about people like Francis of Assisi? Can this medieval fool for God be a hero today? I think so, and so do many others. In 1988, 5 years before he was expelled from his Dominican order by the soon-to-be Pope Cardinal Ratzinger, Matthew Fox started the movement we now call progressive Christianity. He did it with his book, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ, in which he proclaimed the wisdom of St. Francis for today. Like every progressive Christian, Fox simply was finding the universal, indispensable wisdom that exists in Christianity and that the world needs so badly right now. And please note, this indispensable wisdom does not include archaic doctrines you must believe to be saved from an imaginary hell. It does not demand that priests be celibate or say that women can't be priests. Fox found that St. Francis' wisdom was simple and exactly what the world needs today. Revere the earth and its creatures, and follow the true teachings of Jesus by walking in his footsteps. You can easily see how it was that Matthew Fox was, in effect, excommunicated by the Catholic Church. The footsteps of Jesus include having a reverence for all of creation that is holy, not fallen. Francis of Assisi was a good pantheist. He thought God was everywhere, which explains why UUs have adopted him, even UUs who don't believe in any kind of personal God. According to Francis, in one of his admonitions to his brothers and sisters, following in the footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth included living out his words. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That is what we know to be Sermon on the Mount stuff. It seems that 800 years ago, Francis had already identified the words of the real historical Jesus. The war in the Middle East, our planet that is in peril, both are answered by the simple wisdom of St. Francis. Live for others. Francis died at the age of 45 of leprosy. The feast day of St. Francis is October 4th, which was yesterday, and it marks the passing of 797 years since his death. The wounds on his hands and body that appeared to be like the wounds Jesus suffered on the cross, the so-called stigmata, They were likely from a form of leprosy known as tuberculoid leprosy. That doesn't sound miraculous, I guess, except being a suffering Savior to those you once hated is indeed a miracle in our world, and Francis bore the marks to prove it. The story of what happened to the Franciscan order after his death also has great and, sadly enough, predictable lessons. Just 75 years after Francis died, the men of his Franciscan order had become the favored workmen of the Spanish Inquisition. Work that included torturing and killing thousands of people who didn't believe in the not-to-be-questioned doctrines of Christianity. Then, some who considered themselves improved Franciscans decided they should use violence to coerce people into the belief that rich people should not exist. Francis never taught any such thing. This sect of violent Franciscans, called the Dulcinians, started killing bishops and priests and eventually became victims of the Spanish Inquisition themselves. In the following centuries, Franciscans argued endlessly about just how poor they should be. It was not until 1517 that Franciscans agreed, reluctantly, that not all of them had to be completely poor. The conventual Franciscans could own some real estate, although very little, while the so-called observants maintained the custom of owning only what they needed for daily living. If Francis were around today, he probably would not be surprised that humans often screw up his simple idea. But I think he would also smile on recent developments in Christianity. Research now shows conclusively that what people want from their religion is not unprovable doctrines about the nature of God to which people must swear. That age is ending. People instead want loving guidance on how to live in this world. The life story of Francis of Assisi has plenty of that guidance. Perhaps the most famous story, preserved by one of his closest friends, Brother Leo, shows why St. Francis is often regarded as such a different kind of saint. Like many stories about Francis, it has the feeling of a story from Zen Buddhism. That shouldn't be so surprising, really. Buddhists find St. Francis to be one of the most attractive of all the Christian saints. Francis and Leo were walking from Assisi to a nearby town, and Leo was tired. Perhaps they'd been walking for a long time, but Francis was upbeat and feeling good. Then it began to rain steadily, and Leo started to grumble. There was no place for cover, and Francis seemed unperturbed. Then Francis said to Leo, "Do you know what perfect joy is, Leo?" "Not really," Leo said unhappily, in a way that was designed to discourage further conversation. They walked on a bit further as Leo picked up his pace, walking in front of his friend, anxious to get to wherever they were going as quickly as possible. Several minutes went by, and Francis said, this time shouting up ahead to Leo, "Leo, what is joy?" This time Leo didn't even respond, but let out sort of a growl. Enough of this, he thought to himself. I'm not interested in a lesson right now. Again, Minutes go by. The rain is falling even harder, and Francis repeats the question again. Leo spins around and yells back, "I don't know. What is perfect joy, Brother Francis?" Francis replied, "If when we arrive, we're wet down to the bones and shivering from cold, hungry as can be, and we knock on the door to signal our arrival, and a friar opens it, but doesn't recognize us and slams the door shut in our faces, fearful that we've come to rob him, and we're left standing in the rain even longer, and then perhaps we knock again, and someone else opens the door and hits us with sticks, yelling at us like strangers or robbers. And if we remain patient and humble and loving, even then, through all of that, well, that Leo, that reveals the source of perfect joy. That is salvation." Thank you.
Let us take a moment for generosity. When we begin to hold our markers for success in concepts like interconnectedness and kindness, when we place our highest value on each other, our children, and our relationships, then our human spirits soar. James Arana. Let us make a practice of this in this place. For it is in giving that we receive. Those words from St. Francis of Assisi remind us that whatever we give, it will come back to us in unexpected ways. We invite you to join us as we take a collection by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the church as you leave, or by making an online gift at uuflint.org. Thank you.
And our closing words are those of Joseph Campbell. A hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself. The hero's journey is inside of you. Tear off the veil and open the mystery of yourself. You are the hero of your own story.
And let us extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let us go in peace. And if you would like to discuss the service or leave and go immediately to coffee hour, you can choose one or the other. But whatever you like to do. If you want to stay fine and have something to talk about,
Don't use that one.
don't use this one. Or you can go straight to coffee hour. No pressure this morning. It's not a very controversial topic. St. Francis has been, I want to say, latched onto by people of all walks of life and from many different religions, because he presents, to some extent, a non-doctrinal presence. It was all about living out what we might call the universal ideas of how to be a good person. He loved the communion of his day, but he didn't write much theology. It's very easy to love St. Francis. And with that, yes, Harold. I'm not sure my mic is on. Now I'm on. Thanks, Lord.
A couple of very quick thoughts. You mentioned about students and their selection of professions, jobs, and I taught a course